Hey guys, we got some BTBT news to look over. We're also going to look at their chart. We do have a pattern repeating. Also, I want to show you guys ETH, my thoughts, what we saw last cycle, what we should expect to end this cycle if alt season does repeat. And also we have news regarding Bitcoin treasury companies. They have reached 1 million Bitcoin held, which is a major milestone. And I don't say this often, but if you get something useful out of this video, make sure you like, subscribe, ring the notification bell for more videos. Let's look at this BTBT news, Bit Digital. They just announced today their monthly Ethereum treasury and the staking info for the month of August. And as of the end of August, they hold approximately 121,252 Ethereum, worth 532 million based on an Ethereum price of 4,400 nearly. They also staked 105,000 of this Ethereum, or about 86% of their total holdings, and they received 249 ETH in doing so, giving them about a 2.9% annual yield. They also announced their shares outstanding, 321,432,000 shares as of the end of August, and they do still maintain some ownership of White Fiber, 27 million shares there. And they also mentioned some upcoming events. Now, looking at Bit Digital on the chart, I do see a pattern repeating. Remember this long-term pattern from November of 2024 to basically April of 2025. It was stuck in this downtrend, this clear pattern. Constant false breakouts, but couldn't really break out, get a true breakout. Tested the 200 MA there. Couldn't break out of this descending resistance. We're facing the same thing here. Right now, it looks like a falling knife. You want to wait until a break of this trend line. But once this trend line does break, I think history will repeat in that the breakout will be followed by a big move up. After we got through this long downtrend, this clear pattern, once we got to April of 2025, we broke out of it, and it went from about $1.86 to about $4.36 in about 3 months or so. In other words, it did about 163% in just a couple of months. And I do think as we're approaching alt season, as Ethereum could break out of its pattern, out of its consolidation it's been in, if we see a repeat this cycle of what we have seen every cycle, we should see Ethereum go higher very soon, break this pattern. We have news a couple weeks ago that H.C. Wainwright maintained their $7 a share price target. I'll believe that price when I see it. I'll be careful with BTBT here. If it hits lower lows, it's going to continue down more. Is trying to hold here at this roughly 445 area. But if this doesn't hold, I'd expect it to go lower. One thing we do have possibly coming is a bullish divergence. If the price does go lower, then this will probably invalidate this RSI divergence. But for now, you're seeing the RSI trying to hit a higher low, but we will see where it goes over the coming days. We need to see this finish. But if this plays out, if Bit Digital holds this level, we'll have equal lows on the chart, but higher lows on the RSI, and this could be partly what brings us out of this pattern and testing the 50 right here, this red one, and the 200 MA. In the end, I think we need ETH to break out. ETH has been consolidating in a good way. It's been consolidating above these previous peaks this cycle that we have seen, but under its all-time high from November 2021. So it's basically just consolidating in between its cycle peak and its last cycle peak, in between 5,000 basically and about 4,200. I think a test of the 50 may be in order. We're getting close to it. ETH has done fantastic this quarter, and that's one thing to consider with BTBT, as their earnings should go very well. They should see an unrealized gain on all of their Ethereum holdings. And Ethereum, like I said, has performed very well, sitting at about 2,000 in June and ending August at about 4,500. So that quarter for BTBT should go very well. We should see a gain. We should see a positive EPS. And I really do think their move into Ethereum, scrapping the Bitcoin mining, was a good move, but we will see over the next 3 or so months. Now, I do still think 8 to 10,000 is possible. Might be overly optimistic in that thinking. But let me show you last cycle and why I do think it's possible, and we have seen even more performance in previous cycles. Of course, you have to consider that as ETH gets bigger, just like with Bitcoin, cycles moving forwards are going to see diminishing returns. Market cap grows. You can't expect these crazy 10, 20, 30, 40 times multiples like you could in previous cycles. But looking at Ethereum in the last cycle, in September, it hit a low. It hit 2,700 and it ended the cycle. Ended right around November, nearly at $5,000. So it went from $2,700 to $5,000, roughly an 80% return in just a few months. An 80% return from where we are here to end the cycle would put it right at about $8,000. So I do think best case scenario would be an $8,000 to $10,000 peak for Ethereum. I think more likely would probably be $6,000 to $8,000, slightly diminished return over last cycle. And let's look at the 2017 cycle. In September of 2017, Ethereum bottomed out at $208. September tends to be a pretty rough month, but a good month to load up on alts. A good month to buy some Bitcoin, buy some Ethereum, possibly some other alts. Ethereum bottomed out here at 206, and it topped out in that cycle at about 1,300. With diminishing returns in mind, I think from here to the end of the cycle, ETH could do somewhere around a 50%, maybe more, maybe less, but that would put it right around $6,000. I do think that is pretty reasonable to expect out of Ethereum, especially if we see alt season repeat, Bitcoin dominance drop, these alts start running, more inflows going into Ethereum than Bitcoin, which we have been seeing. All this talk about Ethereum is basically to say that if Ethereum does this, I do expect an outperformance from BitDigital from where it is here. Now, moving from Ethereum and talking about Bitcoin a little bit. We have some big news today. Bitcoin treasuries have reached 1 million Bitcoin in holdings. And just the top 100 public companies nearly reached it. But adding all public companies that hold Bitcoin brings them to 1,632 Bitcoin. In a matter of days, we will see the top 100 Bitcoin holders reach 1 million, probably by tomorrow. Keep in mind, out of that 1 million Bitcoin held by public companies, MicroStrategy is like 2/3 of this. They are the leader by far, and it's not going to end. They're just going to get more and more and more until these companies have a larger percentage of Bitcoin. And this is something I've talked about before is retail investors are never going to be able to buy one whole Bitcoin. Last cycle was the last cycle to do so, which is very sad. Bitcoin will never go to a $15,000 price again. It's damn near impossible for an average retail investor to buy Bitcoin at 100,000. Who knows where it goes in the next bear market? Maybe it bottoms out at 50,000, maybe it's 70,000, maybe it's lower. But it's becoming increasingly harder for the average person to ever acquire one Bitcoin. We will be fighting for scraps of Bitcoin, and that is how it is going to be moving forwards, which is pretty sad. These big companies are going to be able to acquire tons of Bitcoin. You and me are going to be fighting for little fractions of it. What about the spot ETFs? They're acquiring more and more Bitcoin as well. Soon these two entities, publicly traded companies and spot Bitcoin ETFs, are going to continue to hold more and more of a majority of Bitcoin. And as we get through upcoming cycles, upcoming halvings, Bitcoin is going to become more scarce, and it's going to make it that much harder for us to ever acquire one whole Bitcoin. If you have reached one Bitcoin, congratulations. That is going to be an increasingly rare occurrence among retail investors. Now, I do want to look at this myself. I'll provide the link down below for you guys, but just to show you that public companies now hold 1 million, over 1 million Bitcoin. These numbers are going to continue to increase. Entities holding Bitcoin is going to continue to grow. Bitcoin in treasuries is going to continue to grow. The numbers that these companies hold are going to continue to grow. It is becoming more and more and more obvious that Bitcoin is scarce. It is capped at 21 million, and that is one thing that makes it so damn valuable. Its scarcity and the fact that every 4 years, the supply that comes into the market gets cut in half. Plus the fact that the vast majority is already in circulation. If I can find the picture, I will show you. We have I'm talking upper 90s% in terms of Bitcoin that's already out there. We are fighting for the last couple percentages of Bitcoin over the next 100 years or so. I do believe there is no asset better than Bitcoin, and companies are starting to warm up to it, as you can clearly see. But anyways, thanks as always for watching, guys. Where do you think BTBT ends this cycle? Can it reach double digits? Can it reach H.C. Wainwright's prediction? Do you think it just sees $5? Is that more reasonable? And where does Ethereum land? Does it reach 8 to 10,000, kind of a repeat of last cycle? Or is alt season just not going to happen? I think seeing these ETH inflows recently versus Bitcoin inflows is a clear sign that alt season is coming, that at least the big whales are anticipating it. They are loading up in anticipation of alt season. They're getting in ahead of it. And I do think that is a positive sign that we will see alt season. Bitcoin dominance has been dropping. But anyways, before I ramble on, thanks as always for watching, guys. I appreciate you, and I will see you on the next one.